influencers, podcasters, hundreds of them, thousands of them. And I think you have this real fragmented belief.
Tell me what certification body right now has some sort of certification on these recovery modalities to program that for a client based on what they answer on an assessment form. There's nothing.
A belt squat, a leg press, a Smith press will never duplicate the results of a lunge or a barbell squat.
We don't lead with price. Price is something you get to and negotiate most favored nations pricing for once they've ticked all of those things.
The supplement industry, for a lot of great reasons, it's really good at marketing, not necessarily good product.
Look, I know you from World Gym, right? Then you went into consulting, but you were chatting about recovery. So I would love to understand your perspective on recovery, just because you've been in the industry for a long time. You've seen a lot of things change. I feel like you don't get the wool over your eyes when it comes to equipment and modalities and things like that. But there's a lot in recovery that are unknown. I talked about it in our little talk today where I said, you have no way to measure the efficacy of recovery. You just kind of put it there because members think it's cool. It looks like, but I would like to know, because I just have limited time, what do you think works? What doesn't work? If you're an operator, what should they be investing in? What are your perspectives on that?
Here's the thing. I mean, recovery is still one of those new categories, right? That we're everybody's hot topic, you know? The question is, when does it fizzle out? Does it fizzle out? Does it stay along? I think it's going to be something that stays for a long time, because as an industry, we have to be more educated about it, right? We have to understand how it actually impacts the body long term. I think there's a lot of things that we look at as cool right now, but what happens in 5, 10, 15 years from now? I mean, that was early on with, like, for instance, creatine, right? When people were taking creatine in the 80s and 90s, it was like,
well, you just started creatine.
You know, but this is the thing. It was like, oh my God, you can't take it. It's going to damage your kidneys.
Yes.
You're going to do this.
Even 5 grams.
It is the number one research product, like, in the world at this point, right? And now they want women to take it, and athletes to take,
but like 20 grams a day.
Gummies and all this.
Yeah.
So recovery to me is one of those things that's going to be studied for a long time, and I think we're just starting to get to the point to see how it's impacting, one, the human body in performance in everyday life and in sport. I mean, think about it. Recovery's been around in sports for a long time. The guys would get in the ice bath after a game. We would all think they were nuts. Guess what? Now everybody on social media is jumping in an ice bath and posting it. Right? It's crazy.
But there's a difference, because those athletes just spent 3 hours in the football field. They're injured.
Correct.
They have inflammation. It's to reduce that. People are jumping in now after going for a 20-minute walk in the morning.
They're putting their face in a bowl of ice now in the morning.
I don't understand that. I don't get that either.
But to my point is this. I don't think it's one of those things that's necessarily going to go away. I think it's going to be refined over time. What's fluff, what's not, what actually works long-term, what doesn't. And from a gym perspective, I still think the biggest challenge is making money off it. I think a lot of operators are still struggling to figure out how to monetize it. Yes, I need it to compete, but what does that really mean? Do I take this space out? I mean, I know clubs that have invested in it and said, you know what, we're pulling it out. It's not, we can't make money off it. We're spending too much, or they couldn't figure out the magic formula. Now, granted, don't get me wrong. There's companies that are doing very, very well with it, and they figured out their magic sauce, and great for them. But I would say the majority are still, throw it on the wall and see what sticks type of,
Hope is not a strategy.
Yeah.
So for me, you look at clubs that would add a tanning bed. Look at Planet Fitness. Planet Fitness had tanning beds, right? Now they're converting some of them to red light. They have hydro massage chairs in there. Hydro massage, I guess you could fall. It falls under the recovery kind of category.
Sure it does.
But there's nothing therapeutic about hydro massage.
Yeah. You been on one?
I've been on one. I mean, it feels good.
Well, okay. Well, isn't that therapy?
Okay,
isn't
maybe,
that therapeutic?
maybe a
relaxation, heated
okay.
water, jets massaging your body. Give me one right now. I'll be good.
You'll be on.
I'll be on.
Okay.
But to your point, there's different levels of it, right? Like that same company, Wellness Space Brands, they've got their cryo lounge now. Right? So I'm not going to spend $100,000 for a cryo machine, but I can give my members some sort of cold therapy by putting them on a cryo lounge. Now, granted, it's only going to be my neck and back and shoulders, but I got to tell you, I mean, there's been days when I've had migraines and I was at a show or something, and I got on that cryo lounge and put on my neck and shoulders, and I felt great in 15 minutes.
I think that's the thing you mentioned there, though, because I've tried lots of it, and I'm just, I've always loved to get in cold water. I just feel mentally it makes me feel good about myself because I can do something different. But what does it really do for me? And somebody who isn't like crazy to want to do that sort of stuff. I question a lot of these therapies because it's not obvious what it does to you. I track different things, and I've been involved in the space for many, many years. So I probably have a good feel for how my body reacts to different things. And even with that, sometimes I'm like, well, is this placebo? Have I just had a good night's sleep before? Is my Oura ring lying to me? And I just am running a lot faster. Like even when I did creatine for a few days, I'm like, wow, this is crazy. I was texting you. And then it kind of leveled off. So I think for some of this stuff, it's a huge investment. I was listening to a Tia's podcast just a couple of days, and he was pretty negative on cold therapy. And yet, it's a huge thing. He sort of said, look, the research isn't really there. You're better off getting in a jacuzzi. And I'm thinking, saunas, jacuzzis, like this was what the industry was like when I started. Fitness First was doing that back in the sort of mid 80s. So where do you invest? And is it a case of, are we creating something that's doesn't have to be as complicated as it is?
Everybody likes the flashy new toy, right? And whether it lasts a long time or not is yet to be. But you think about saunas. I mean, the Finns have been preaching sauna and heat therapy for millenniums. Yeah, I mean, it's like, well, we're catching up to a certain degree in a lot of ways. For a long time, it's like a couple put a sauna in, it was like, ooh, and it was like, well, does it really work? You just sit in there and hang out. What do you do? Now we're understanding the benefits of it. To your point on cold therapy, I still don't think there's enough valid research. I'm not an expert by any means, so don't at me in the comments, right? But I still think there's a lot for us to learn on the long-term effects of what those things do. Now, things like red light, for instance, we were talking earlier today. There's different types of red light. Do we really understand what we're buying as club operators? Near infrared, far infrared, now they got blue light, green light, white light. Like, are we educated enough to make that decision and then tell that story to a consumer of why this product is better than a club down the street's product? I don't think we're there yet. I think we still need a lot more education on that side of things, and I'm looking forward to seeing where it goes.
One big difference, speaking of education, Jarrod, you think about all of us who've kind of been haven't been in the industry for as long as both of you, but I've been in fitness and been a consumer of it. And I used to read Flex. You guys remember that?
Flex magazine.
Muscle Media 2000, which was Bill Phillips' magazine, Muscle and Fitness. And that's kind of how we as consumers got educated. And it was still pretty controlled. Like we talked about Charles Poliquin, right? Charles Poliquin, everyone, well, at least we would know who he is, but a lot of people today would not. He would be the modern day Atia. Today, right? That he would be
with a little bit more aggression and.
Well, he didn't have to get on the podcast, right? But you would just read about German volume training, and it would be
German volume.
It would be. You remember that?
Oh yeah.
That would be like it would be an article.
Failure. Oh yeah.
But we would all read that same thing, and it would be a limited number. My point is, it's like limited number of sources, and we're all getting the same subscription to 3 or 4 magazines. Well, oh, did you see this? You go to the gym with this. Now, influencers, podcasters, hundreds of them, thousands of them. And I think you have this real fragmented belief on what do you, and you're not coming to the gym saying, did you just look at the latest issue of this, right? Because everyone's listening to different things. I think because of that, consumers are coming in and they want optionality. And the clubs, it's hard like for a club, right? Because what do you know what product you need to offer? Like you talk about red light therapy and all, like education and the awareness part of it is hard. I believe that that's an opportunity for the club.
To your point, and this goes back to something I've said, and I don't know if it's been on your podcast or not, but I preach this all the time. You have to know who your target specific demographic is. If you're, as a club owner, yes, you want to be open your doors to everybody, and we welcome everybody. That's great, and we can use all the words that we want, right? But you have to build your brand on a certain specific target demographic that you're going after. Is it 35 to 65? Is it 25 to 35? Is it 18 to 25? All of those different demographics are responding to different types of recovery modalities as it is. So you can't just go put everything in and hope it works. Like, you got to research what's hot and what's not for that specific demographic. If other people come and use it, great. But why am I putting this in? And then you got to be able to tell that story to that consumer. You got to be able to message that and go, hey, we put this, you know, Halo Therapy red light vitality booth in because it's the only thing that combines, you know, red light and Halo salt generation together for immune system. Like, you got to be able to tell that story. Right? And this is why we chose this particular product versus the one down the street. And I don't think enough people do that. They come to shows, they meet with people, they develop relationships, they like the product, it's cool. Do I think it's going to be great? Yeah, you know, people are going to love this. Are they? Do you really know that?
And are you going to fall through on the education?
Well, that's it. And is it going to make me money as an operator in a long? How am I going to monetize it?
What do you think about assessment? Because if you look at a training program, or even though as an industry you probably don't do a great job at doing assessments, but you would start with an assessment and then you would put them into a training program. What are your thoughts on recovery? Because even the most recent research around cold plunge, I think we know now that if you're doing any kind of strength training, the research seems to be fairly conclusive that it's not good to go into cold plunge shortly after strength training. I just wonder how many people know that that's the case, and how many people, when they're looking at this, whether it's red light, whether it's PMF, whether it's cold therapy, or a combination of all those other things, whether anybody really has a clue, or whether they're interacting with someone to say, okay, look, tell me what you're doing today, tell me what you're doing tomorrow, this is what you should do here, this is what you should do there, or whether it's a case of, look, we've got this whole area, there's a bunch of stuff, just have at it. And
well, so let me ask you a question. Tell me right now, what educational system, college, university, has a degree or some sort of part of their curriculum in exercise phys on recovery? Tell me what certification body right now has some sort of certification on these recovery modalities to program that for a client based on what they answer on an assessment form. There's nothing right now.
I even say for wearables, right? They don't even include how to read wearable data.
No.
This is a gap.
Yeah,
There's a gap.
it's a big gap. So anybody out there listening, I mean, that's a huge thing, but again, it requires data, facts, long-term history over things, and we don't have it yet. You know, to your point, we were talking again earlier about programming recovery, you know, into somebody's personal training sessions or workout routine. Hey, after we're done, you're going to spend 15 minutes in, you know, compression boot, and you're going to do, you know, red light, and you're going to do this. Nobody's really doing that. I will say this. There's one gentleman last year, Brent Potter from Anytime Fitness. I don't know if you know Brent. A lot of respect for the guy. He does a lot with personal training. And I thought he was doing something really interesting with his training department. Every 60-minute personal training session, the last 15 is dedicated to some sort of recovery modality, whether it's a percussion gun, whether it's something. So it starts to get the clients into the mode of, hey, I need to do some sort of recovery after training hard for 45 minutes. I think that's the closest thing I've heard yet to some sort of, you know, prescriptive programming for recovery, which is great. Which is a great way to build that into a training program.
Actually, you know,
Boydie and
he's a big dude. Brent's a big dude.
Yeah,
in shape, and I think he practices recovery.
Oh yeah.
As Richard Boyd, you know, we interviewed those, and like they have a philosophy. I don't know whether there's a curriculum around it, but about moving the fluids. You know, very very simply, Ian O'Dwyer and Richard Boyd, I believe, have got something along that. I don't know how structured it is, but they're the only people I've spoke to that kind of really, I guess, made sense of it, which was essentially it's really important after and before to move the fluids around your body, but kind of, you know, it's not something I guess I probably know as much about as I.
This is something that I think for the endurance world calls a prehab and post-hab.
Yeah.
And it's very common if you talk to cyclists and runners, they do prehab and post-hab, which is basically recovery in a different kind of way. But in the gym world, it's relatively...
It's one word that means a lot of things, isn't it? Really?
But let's go back to fluids for a second, bodily fluids for a second, because this is my problem with cold plunge. Not to get disgusting or anything, but that's another thing we don't have worked out yet.
How to keep them clean.
Well, think about this. I don't care what filtration system you got on this thing, all right? Matthew gets done a workout, and he jumps into cold plunge. He's in there for 2 or 3 minutes.
You're supposed to shower.
You're not supposed to do it without shower, but people do.
Exactly. They can't even shower before they go in a pool. You think they don't do that. That's what happens. And even if they do, you get in, 2 minutes later, he gets in, 2 minutes later, I get in. Bro, that bather load is pretty tight. Okay, you have a problem with big pools in bather loads and keeping it up with chlorine and bromine or salt or whatever.
Bather load, what does that mean?
What it's called, bather load. How many people use that water in an hour or a day? So how many, based on the gallons of water or volume of water in that unit, that tub or that pool, how many people can safely use that water, that body of water, before it becomes bad for you? Infections,
So you recommend you don't put your face in that?
Man, let me tell you something. Go do the bowl of ice. But it skeeves me out a little bit. And I know everybody's going to say, well, we got this filtration. I guarantee you, not everybody showers. And when you walk up to it, because I've seen it, and I've seen it in some really nice places, you got the oil on the top and there's a hair in there. And how are we even managing that experience for the person right now?
True. That's a good point. Now, I was at Othership. You were there too, like a couple months ago. And, when you do the hot sauna experience that you're supposed to bathe, which I did, but I saw a lot of people, because they didn't have enough showers, a lot of people just skip that.
No, why does a sauna in all that beautiful
nice
cedar wood
people in there, though, aren't they?
But he's still sweating though.
Yeah, listen, the cedar wood, go look at the cedar wood in the sauna that you use and how it's worn out in certain areas, and it's bodily oils and fluids. People aren't necessarily showering and stuff before they go. I don't want to skeeve out to your audience, but this is true. So when you talk about all the things...
I did feel better in Othership, though. I just kind of felt it was just nice and clean people in there.
Good for you. That might be the European guy in you, because I got news for you. Listen, I love people, and but there are some that are going to follow the rules and they're going to do everything. But the majority of people, come on, they don't even put their plates back on a rack. You think they're going to shower and take all that? Come on, man. The experience for people still with some of those modalities, that's a whole nother thing I think we got to figure out. You want to put one at your house? Cool.
It'd be interesting for someone to do a survey on like the benefits of cold plunge compared to the risks of getting inside it from a bacteria.
Listen, look, if you own a whirlpool or you have a hot tub or whirlpool at a gym, how many, you got to drain it, you got to scrub it, you got to clean it. Okay, now you got this little body of water, and we're all sharing it within a couple minutes of each other. Like we're taking a bath together, guys. Like it or not. How long does that cycle take to filter out? How much fresh water is actually going in there? Is it really chlorinated enough, bacteria free? Again, I know they're developing technology and there's a lot of things going on as far as filtration and stuff goes, but I got to tell you right now, that's still a big part of the experience. And to me, member experience, customer experience, user experience is a big part of the success of any type of modality you put in, training, classes, and recovery, So another thing you got to think about, is it worth it?
With that, I've successfully lost my appetite for dinner today.
Yeah, there you go. So,
but Jarrod, thank you for coming on.
Yeah, no problem.
Thanks, Jarrod, for kind of like putting an interesting twist on recovery.
Yeah, hey, you said let's get real, so that's it. Just some things to think about. I appreciate the opportunity, guys, as always. Thank you.
Hillis Lake, we've known each other probably since about 1999 when I first bumped into you in somewhere in East London. Forza, that's where we St. Catherine's Dock, yeah. And I thought as a start, we're talking about some of the modalities that people are bullish on. The survey from here at W3 today, 78% of people said strength training. And I guess you're probably one of the few people that have just seen this whole history in strength training. And so just as a start, tell us a little bit about strength training when you came into the industry and where you think it is today.
So I had the good fortune of working for Gainesville Health and Fitness Center, which automatically put me in touch with Arthur Jones and Nautilus. Back then, as a sales rep, I was selling health and fitness. That was before we even sold 2 up, 4 down, 1 set to failure, do it twice a week. Your mother won't recognize you in 6 weeks. That was my pitch, believe it or not.
You've not said that many times.
Yeah. So, what Nautilus really did is it made strength training acceptable by society. Because back then, how did a man with muscles look? He looked like a freak. Mm-hmm. Now, it's the norm. But back in the Nautilus days, particularly the late 70s and early 80s, we had to make it easy for a human being to accomplish a strength training goal. And in 2 sessions a week, 30 minutes or less, 1 hour a week, you in 6 weeks would not be recognized by your own parents. That's what we did. And we sold this concept of Nautilus high-intensity training, the high-intensity training, the original high-intensity training. That's what we sold. And these 12 machines are going to help you to implement high-intensity training. And that's how this whole thing started to begin and how it rolled out. And we made it very easy for people to come in the masses. Gosh, I can remember at Joe's Club, it was probably 79, 2 weeks after he got his first 7 pieces of Nautilus. We were putting people through those 7 pieces literally from the time I showed up at work until I was locking the bathroom door.
Wow.
It's just literally one after another. There were no weights. I mean, it was one after another.
And were these plate loaded or selectorized?
It's selectorized.
Okay.
So, by the way, something that's happening in the industry right now, if you want to make a lot of money, find some vintage Nautilus, chain-driven, plate-loaded. You better bring a barrel full of money because that stuff is hot. And ironically, it was probably some of the best equipment I personally ever used in my life. The original stuff, you know. But what that allowed the industry to do is we became an industry. And, you know, we learned how to sell memberships. We learned how to create EFTs. We, as an industry, have come so far. But the interesting thing is here we are 40 years later, and the hottest topic of all, even maybe second only to recovery, is strength training. Mm-hmm. And now people will spend hours before they go to the gym designing their programs. They take in, you know, their favorite podcast, their favorite YouTube. You don't need a trainer. You know, we still need trainers, and I can touch on that later. But the fact of the matter is that IT, technology, has made it easy and affordable for everyone to achieve fitness goals beyond their wildest imaginations. And it's going faster and faster every day. I'm in the strength training business. I can tell you that you still have to pick something up and you have to put something down. And then the greatest hormonal system, the greatest endocrine system on earth fires up, even if it's just a bicep curl. How do we measure it? How do we track it? How do we motivate it? How do we get the person to do another rep? How do we get the person to come back 72 hours later and reproduce it? Maybe even reproduce it with some high-intensity training intention. That's where we are in the industry now. We know that to create physical change, you have to move against gravity or you have to move a weight, period. You have to create some form of destruction to that tissue. You know, and then we get down the recovery path and, you know, and all of that. But strength training has become the norm now. And over my career, you know, back in the 90s when I was at Cybex, you know, we were embarking on this new journey, but cardio really trumped it. And for the manufacturers, cardio made the money.
Yeah.
There used to be a saying, cardio or strength is for show, cardio is for dough. Not anymore. That's completely flipped around. Here, you know, 30 years later. So during the Cybex era, we saw innovations come in, such as dual axis. We saw an incredible piece of equipment called the Hiker, the total body burner. It morphed into the Arc Trainer. Matthew and I embarked on a journey in 99, 2000. It was called functional training. And we saw how you can get out of a machine that was seated, isolated, and stabilized, and you can actually move. You can move against resistance. You can mimic human movement patterns, your activities of daily living. You now can engage with a trainer, truly engage with a trainer who is much more than just a rep counter. He's no longer a rent-a-friend. They were actually a motivator. They were teaching you new exercises. They were throwing balls and bands at you, and it became interactive. It became fun. You know, and functional training explored other avenues and kind of bled its way into this thing called CrossFit, just calisthenics. Because if you go back to the early 2000s, Matthew, what were we doing? A lot of at free motion and ground zero, we were doing calisthenic exercises. Your warm-ups be some push-ups, a few jumping jacks, you know, and then that morphed into what it became, you know, through the Navy SEAL training, et cetera. But through all of this, we had a device come along. It was a new device. It was not just a mirror, but it was a mirror that you could take multiple pictures of yourself and send it all over the world, and it was called the phone. And with this little device here, which is it's most people's universe, it allowed you to download pictures, upload pictures, and it was acceptable to look better naked. And that ultimately was most people's goals. I mean, we're adults. Most people want to look better naked. Being able to move, that's also important. You know, being able to have a good core, that's really important. So we saw the fitness industry goes from fixed, isolated, stabilized to a free motion type of equipment to doing functional training. And then another component came in as a result of CrossFit, which was Olympic lifting. And at that time, I had the good fortune of helping the Blomberg family to bring Eleiko to the U.S. And every club went from 1 or 2 platforms to 4 or 5 to 8 or 9. Now the baseline now is 8. We have done some high-end clubs though with as many as 18. Bars, plates, dumbbells. That's what the order of the day was. You know. And so interestingly, as the internet fed us programs, fed us training principles, we started to focus on this thing that we were getting amazing results from. And the results we were getting were from doing lunges, squats, Zercher squats, front squats, and lunges, and this amazing development happened behind us. It was called our rear end. And through that, we morphed into hypertrophy. And something else happened along the way. It was called physiques. Now, bodybuilding pretty much just died out. But we've all had the pleasure of seeing women's physique add a new spark to our industry. And the old saying was, I'll hire on the way in, you hire on the way out. Excuse me if I'm being sexist, but that's kind of what it's all about now. It's all about the end caps, the shoulder, the separation between the glutes, the low back, and the hamstrings. If you got that, well, guess what that ended up doing? A lot of my platform half rack customers, they're now buying, the majority of their purchase is plate loaded. That's going to work those body parts.
End caps, what's that?
Shoulders.
Oh, okay. All right. I thought, all right.
Come on, got to get with the lingo
No,
here.
I'm just trying to kind of like I'm picturing an end cap on a woman.
Yeah.
And I'm
so shoulders, you know.
right.
So now we're actually redesigning clubs that allow plate-loaded equipment, more plate-loaded equipment. We're still keeping the half racks and platforms. It's still a cornerstone because it doesn't matter what exercise or combination of exercises you do on a piece of plate loaded or anything else for that matter. Nothing will ever replace the benefit and the results of a barbell squat or a lunge. You know, so that's what we were designed to do.
What about, just on that, just to quickly jump in, like what about belt squats like that? You know, particularly as you get a little bit older like us, you know, that's I would have thought that would be starting to become quite popular. Do you think?
So here's the thing, you're not loading the spine when you use a belt squat, but where is the load being displaced?
Quads.
We have to start thinking about
Knees.
the architectural structure of your pelvis, your hips, the architecture of your patellofemoral joint, the architecture of your hip socket, your acetabulum, and all of these things are dictating new machines or new methods of training. So back in the day, we would just tell someone to squat down like you're sitting on the toilet. Now you've mastered how to squat. In today's world, now we can actually look at your hip sockets. We can look at your lumbopelvic rhythm. We can look at your knees, your feet, how your feet cave in or fall out. And now we're actually doing something that we were talking about doing in the last century, and that's called personal training. So personal training should be very alive and doing very well right now. Because if someone can see those cues, they should be able to squat 1,000 pounds. Their muscles are that strong. Their bones aren't, but their muscles are that strong. If you take the weight off the spine, yes, in theory, you should be able to squat away. You should be able to squat away in a pendulum squat. You're modifying the line of resistance through the spine on any of these different modalities. A leg press, but I promise you, a belt squat, a leg press, a Smith press will never duplicate the results of a lunge or a barbell squat.
I love the feel though of like a belt squat, just because you can just really, you know, you can just, I don't know, you just can like push super hard. You just get this feel on your legs and your glutes. I don't know. I just really enjoy that.
So here I have a.
squat.
Sorry for interrupting. I get excited about this stuff. So guess who built the first belt squat?
I don't know. It's a good question actually. Was it the guys who? Was it the guys Pit Shark from Rogers? No. Okay, that's the first one I've ever saw.
You got to go way back.
Oh, okay. Go on then.
It was Arthur Jones with the Omni Multi-Exercise. Wow. That was a machine he had that you could do weighted, weighted, because back then people didn't do anything assisted. We did dips and we did pull-ups, and most often we were doing them with weight. So then Arthur came up with the idea of putting a box in front of that machine that had 3 steps. Well, the belt that you were using to give yourself a weighted pull-up, that now became the weighted belt squat.
Okay.
So your bad day was going to be the day you went and trained with Arthur or Jim Flanagan or other people, and he had you do a leg extension to failure, a leg press to failure, and then you got on the OME, Omni Multi-Exercise, you put the belt on, and then you found out what you were really made of. Because pain, and the fact is, if you have a good trainer, like some of those guys back then, pain kind of left your body. And this weird thing happened. Just one more, I can do it, just one more. You just become possessed with the feeling of pushing yourself to that limit. Like, how faster can you go? How higher can you jump? You know, can you land this one? Can you stick this one? And it just became a contest within your own brain. You know, and so I'm off on a tangent.
With that, we've got more to talk about.
Mr. Pat Regan, welcome to the podcast. You've been in, as far as I know, we had a chat yesterday, and I believe it's been around about 25 years that you've been with Lifetime for one of the most well-known and probably one of the largest premium health clubs chains in the world. And I'm sure you've seen so many things through your journey, and you've been at the head of procurement with your team for all of that time. We're at an event where buyers meet suppliers. I'm just curious, what would you say has been some of the guiding principles that have got you through that career, and what would you say is important today for people that are in a similar role to what you was at Lifetime?
Yeah, I was lucky to have great leaders supporting me. Brahma Karate, Jeff Sweefel. I had great leaders that always supported me, challenged me. And I was fortunate to be in a lot of their meetings and conversations that gave me insight that I needed to take my journey to support them in procurement, right? So that was super important. That engagement, that communication was critically important. Creating a culture within a certain division, and then not hiring, but casting and recruiting the right DNA and people that will act as an accelerant to grow that culture inside Lifetime and the division was another really big step. And then making sure you're engaged the right way with your team, authentic leadership. And that was really tough for me because I was used to getting stuff done, right? Doing things myself. And really authentic leadership comes from listening and making sure your team knows what to do and how to do it. And then your job is to remove roadblocks so that you can provide emotional intelligence in order to get the job done the right way for the brand, right? And continue to have an eye on that culture. So I think those are some really keys to success. And then we partnered with great people, and I think the whole team supported continuous learning, which is a critical factor. Is you have to really you shouldn't know it all. You should try to always understand all sides of the point of view so you can make your own decisions up, and then bring more people into decision. Any number of heads greater than one will always come up with a better decision. So when we had a big decision to make, we got close to our businesses we supported, whether it's a cafe or personal training or a number of the businesses, the spa. We made sure that we implanted experts inside those businesses, and they really got to know the businesses and what they needed for support for growth, whether that's product or better pricing, and then we executed that for them. So, I think we really got close to the business, and Brahm and Jeff supported that.
Something that Lifetime's done, and I've been a member of Lifetime for a very long time, and I think something that Lifetime has done really well is you've always understood what the consumer wanted really, really well. And I was a member of Lifetime before I had kids, after I had kids, and then had a family. And I always felt like Lifetime also grew with me. So you always gave something from a product perspective that served the customer through their stages of life, which I felt was really important because it kept you engaged and kept you wanting to spend more at Lifetime. Bringing procurement, and you've been a part of that since the beginning. We talked about this yesterday. Pat, how do you understand what that consumer needs? Because when you're in procurement, it's not about what they need today. It's about understanding the trends and what's coming. That's got to be challenging.
Well, I will tell you, I think
it's almost like drafting in an NFL team, right? It's almost like you've got to make the right draft picks.
No question. I mean, so that's where you really have to, when you're not hiring people, you're casting, recruiting that right talent to support the businesses that they're going to be supporting. And it's about communication. And I think that communication is the strongest skill you can have, either to execute, to build a team, or to lead a team. You have to have really strong communication and get into the businesses. It's, and you're right. Bram has got a vision that many people don't understand right away. And I think he would be the first one to say there's a number of characteristics for leaders, and vision's number one. And then a tremendous skill to communicate, because people aren't going to understand that vision. And you have to communicate it to them in a way where they can understand it. And then in unbelievable thrust, because you're going to have naysayers and people that don't really see the vision completely or don't believe in it. So you have to have a lot of thrust. And then I think the most important one that Bram would tell you is you have to have love as the underpinnings of your leadership skill set, because people have to know that you authentically care.
Yeah.
And Lifetime has been built on that.
I remember coming to your office one day, and at first, when we first met, you said, come out and see us, and you had this whiteboard, and you drew out this process in your office. I'm sure you've done a number of times. And it got me thinking, when you make a decision in a company like Lifetime, they've always been very successful at staying. They don't seem as though they're always behind the trend. They always seem as though they're kind of just, slightly in front, but definitely not behind. And it's not a small business; it's a mega business. It's so many different businesses together. When you bring on a partner like us, we're a relatively small, unknown company at the time, and for someone like yourself, it would have been a big risk to make the wrong decision. So, what are some of the things that you can share that are important when you're deciding about bringing a new partner on, which I guess when you're an innovative company, you've got to bring new people that are relatively small and new into the company. But how do you assess those to make sure that, one, they're going to be right for your company, but two, it's going to be something that could develop into a long-term relationship?
Yeah, that's a good question. Well, there's kind of a standardized checklist that we went through, right? And you do the research, you go to the shows, you talk to people, you talk to your peers. And I think one of the important things that I will tell Mike Feeney and I think created is Bram McCrotty and Mark Masteroff introduced Mike and I to each other at a very young time in our career and encouraged us to communicate. And prior to that, there was very little communication between competitors, I'd say, right? Well, Mike and I developed a very strong relationship and shared really great information, insights from one another that helped us both. And then the checklist, as someone was coming, so you've done your research and you've narrowed it down to the top 3 in each category. And you want to make sure that they have a quality product that meets your brand, right? And then after the quality product, I think you really want to make sure that you have the right service level agreements and in place to support the business, and that the entity that you're bringing on can support that, and the right warranties to make sure the equipment is supported during its total cost of ownership, right? What's the capitalization process or timeline, and you want to make sure that equipment's covered under that capitalization process and timeline. And then it's price. So price is number 3 or number 4. We don't lead with price. Price is something you get to and negotiate most favored nations pricing for once they've ticked all of those things. And then, of course, maybe lastly, sustainability. How does that meet our goals and objectives within the organization too? Because it's a member point of view, and we always led with member point of view when we brought a vendor in. It's everything about Lifetime is based around member point of view. Mo mentioned, hey, you always seem to be growing, you're doing things for our family. That's because we have great listeners within Lifetime, and they are always searching for what is the most relevant member point of view. And then Bram would turn his business towards that. And it's been magical there, it really has.
Eric Weber, Woodway. I've had a long relationship with Woodway. When we first started our company back in '89, I used to work with one of your distributors at the time, and I'd sold a few products. And Doug, who's your founder, used to, at the time it was about, his positioning was, this is a really, really low energy treadmill. And that was the idea. And when he used to come over and he was telling us, look, we should convince the operators how much energy that they're saving. And he said, I don't know what it is about the guys in England, but they don't really seem to be caring about the amount of energy that these treadmills use. And at the time, that was the positioning statement. Fast forward to a number of years, and the product's sort of been a staple on the market. And I went into, we did some work with Equinox, and I went into one of their running clubs at the time in New York.
Yep.
And the gentleman at the time, it was a buyer, took me into this studio. And I remember looking at this Woodway, and it was like a piece of furniture. It had these beautiful wooden handlebars on it, and it was just so impressive. And so I guess you've been with Woodway for 21 years. During that period, give us a bit of a view of how you've seen the industry and the people that you work with change to almost like where you are today and where they are today.
Sure. I mean, we always have been a performance company. People buy our product because the surface is so much better. With that, the sports world has always been our core business. And as the general population has started to train more like athletes train, with the benefits that you can get out of that type of intentional training, our products have become more and more mainstream within that for the same reasons athletes love them, you know. And as running and the running studios have evolved, we also have been a great experience for that crowd as well, and has kind of opened us up to what used to be a little secret for athletes has turned into a little bit more of a mainstream type of product.
I've always been a fan of Woodway. I think I've known you for maybe 8, 9 years, maybe 10 years.
Yep.
I haven't been in the industry for as long as both of you have. And even before I was in the industry, I always looked for the Woodway to run on. This is before Woodway became ubiquitous in the category. I'm a runner, right? You know that we tried running yesterday. That was fun. And I think it just felt like the most road-like feel. It was the least amount of pressure on my joints. But then when I got in the industry, I'm like, okay, this is actually a very niche product. So I actually have a Woodway at home. I have a Forefront, which is your, I don't know if that's your home version or something like that.
No, it's our commercial unit.
It is, okay. Yeah. And I've done up to 16 miles on it. I haven't done a full marathon yet, but I've done 16 miles on it. And I felt great, came out of it feeling great. A lot of that has to do with the slat that you have on it.
Right.
You've had the IP on that for a long time, but now you see the slat kind of framework on a couple others. I've also had a Peloton treadmill, which kind of has a slat on it, but I've been on a Technogym treadmill, and I think True has one. And so how do you differentiate now? So a couple of things. I know on my Woodway, the speed acceleration, which a lot of people might not know, is actually really fast. If you're doing interval training, the speed up, the speed down, and also the incline. So you guys just always, even on a home product or light commercial product, you've kept that performance right.
Right.
In the market today, and all the slat treadmills out there, how do you differentiate?
Yeah, I mean, I think we have come at this from a performance mindset, working with the world's most elite athletes, and we've taken that experience and those demands and transferred that into what we're offering in the commercial space. I think everybody else is coming at this from a commercial environment, trying to reach performance, and while they might have a slat, they don't, in our opinion, fully understand why our slats are as great as they are. And in the end, it is about the feel. As your 16-mile run would say, it's a feel issue. We know how to make a treadmill feel appropriate for the world's most elite athletes. And if we can do it for them, we can do it in the mainstream. And that subtle difference makes a very large difference as people who are using it for serious training. You know, that we get older, our bodies hurt a little more. Like we're designed to help you optimize.
And do you see the sales of your product go up and down with running trends? So, for example, there's a running boom in the late 2000s.
Sure.
I think post-pandemic, I think we're in another running boom now. A treadmill is always a great complement to outdoor running. That's growing now. Do you see those as it relates to sales, or is it not?
I'm not sure they necessarily completely correlate. I think for a while with the running boom, people were anti-treadmill, like purists want to run outside, right? But as running-centric studios like a Barry's or Precision Run come out and they incorporate running into a larger modality, I think that experience has really helped us grow in that. Running's not this boring, mind-numbing process. You can actually incorporate different modalities and different training, and with all the trends towards strength, we fit within that realm really well. And we understand, coming from the sports world, it's about power, right? And so power is speed and strength, and developing products that highlight and accentuate that aspect of training is really critical. And as we've all seen, cardio has kind of decreased on the floor. Building products that are a little more versatile and provide some flexibility are more important now than ever before. And I think we're filling into some of those gaps.
One final question. As I think about running, I'm always trying to get more people to run. Like, you guys go to these conferences, I'm like, who wants to go running with me?
Yeah.
And because I just think it is such a phenomenal, easy way to do something together and sweat. But it's not, going outside is not always available, which is why treadmills are great. I also think treadmills could be a good way to get people introduced to running instead of going outside. Right. As you think about the future of treadmills, we haven't seen a lot of innovation in treadmills, right? So you look at iFit launched some sort of like new higher tech treadmill. You've seen what Matrix has done, and Life Fitness has some new, a Symbio, right? As you think about Woodway, you've been the purest runner runs in the Woodway, right? Because it just feels the most natural to us. But someone that's new, if I walk up to a Woodway, they're almost intimidated by it in some ways. Can you see you not changing your DNA, but looking at technology tools or other tools, integration with wearable? Like, what do you think the future of running on a Woodway is going to be in 5 years?
Yeah, I think that is a challenge, right? We are a little bit different looking than everybody else, but I also think more and more people understand that moving is good generically. And if you have connective tissue issues, if you haven't trained or done anything in many years, to think that you can just go and run outside is a pretty good recipe for an injury, right? And so I think helping people with a product that is safe, stable, reliable, to help them build up to maybe run. Like if you start with just walking briskly, that's a good start. We've looked at that surprisingly with what we would think is the biggest innovation in the last 15 years is our Curve treadmill changed a category or added a category with the way that we did that. And we did that originally for the sports world so they could simulate the work to rest ratio for team sports, right? And at the same time, this high intensity concept came into being. And what we were surprised with is how many people who were highly deconditioned were still able to use that product and work their way towards running.
I know we wrapped up, but it's just got me thinking. I know you're a big HYROX fan. I know I've seen HYROX have partnered up with Centered and they've come up with their own sort of curve thing, which must annoy the hell out of you. Where do you guys sit with HYROX, and what do you think? What do you think the part that Woodway can play in that? Because if a lot of people, I guess, that do HYROX are first timers and they're getting involved in doing a lot of running. Maybe ask both of you how you think about HYROX and treadmills and where that should eventually go.
Yeah, I think we have a lot of the very elite HYROX athletes training on our product because they have high demands on their bodies, and so they are elite athletes. Right, and so we're used to that type of thing. I think it's the way that they've structured their events and the team and the focus about challenging yourself and a really well-defined is good for the industry and good to have that level of focus. I think like anything, making sure that you're intentional and to not go too hard, too fast and end up hurt and out of the game completely is the tricky part of that. I think when we look at it, I think there's space for all that, right? The more ways that we can get people engaged in the industry moving better is a good thing. And
No, I mean, look, I think HYROX has done for running what CrossFit did for Olympic lifting. It got a lot of people to run. I was with Jack Daly a couple months ago. He said, "No, we're out in Vegas, I forget at which event, but we went out for a run." And he never ran. Like, he was just not a runner, but he was training for a HYROX, and it got him to run. So I think what it's done is it's brought a lot more people who might have been into like lifting and fitness, but to actually enjoy running, because you've got to run 8K in a HYROX. As it relates to treadmills, I just think it's like with any equipment, right? You might get first introduced. Like, I didn't first run I think my first treadmill I ever ran on was probably a Life Fitness treadmill. And that Woodway was that thing in that corner where there was like one of them that no one was really on, except for the really, really fast guy would go on the Woodway. But eventually you're like, hey, I want to like be like that guy. And so I think in a lot of ways, Woodway has been an aspirational, right, product to get on. And it's like you're graduating kind of into it. So I think like with any sport or any activity that you do, as you graduate through it, you figure out the right shoes to wear, the right shorts to wear, the right supplements to take, and all that. And I think that's part of the educational journey.
Right. Yeah. And I mean, I think in the old days when we'd look at forums, and especially in the endurance space, Woodway was a little bit like a unicorn. All these runners had heard of us, but not that many had seen us. And over the years, as we've made ourselves more into the mainstream, everybody gets a chance to experience what that feel is like. And you know, we're going to stay concentrated on making the best feeling experience and the most reliable treadmill for really, really large athletes to run really fast. And if we can do that well, it'll translate in. And there's plenty of room for all the other slat belt treadmills. I mean, we look at it as somewhat of a compliment that everybody thought, look at these funny guys. And now
there's lots of funny guys in the corner.
Right. Right, exactly. So I think it's a good, there's plenty of room. There's plenty of people that should continue to run, and if we can help that, that'd be great.
Ken from DotFit, there's three themes that we've been talking about here: technology, recovery, and exercise modalities. And you guys are in the nutrition space, and from obviously knowing Neil for a long time, his concept of when he was at 24-Hour Fitness and how he did something that is extremely obvious even now, but doesn't really happen, where you combine training with nutrition. Tell us a little bit about what you guys are doing and how, you know, whether that sort of original idea that was extremely successful is still thriving in fitness clubs, or whether you're still trying to convince people that that's a great idea.
That's a great question. You know, going back, if I could, a little bit in history, when I started with Neil back in 1988 with Gold's Gym Enterprises, and back in that time, it was really before EFT existed. Gyms didn't have computers, and we created the first nutrition program prior to Apex called Nutritionalysis. And the difference there was we had a person in the club that would just do the nutrition and supplement part, and then the trainer would do the exercise and movement part. And then over time, when we started working with 24-Hour and subsequently 24-Hour acquired Apex, they merged it where the trainer then did all what we call the 4 pillars: the nutrition, the exercise and movement, supplementation and coaching. And we're actually seeing now that with technology, we may be reverting back more to having a specialist handling the nutrition coaching and the supplement part, and then working with the trainer to be able to deliver maybe a more precise product. And I could give you numerous reasons, but one, to be able to scale today with technology we didn't have back then. You know, so you had to have a person in a club, and then if they left, then a part of the training package was, you know, kind of obsolete or didn't work, and they're scrambling, looking for somebody else. Today with technology, with Zoom, Teams, all of these things, the person could live in a different city and still handle those 2 pillars, if you would, and maybe somebody that's a little more a specialist. And so we're kind of embarking back on that level right now, and looking at implementing that in through some of the facilities.
So I'm relatively new to DotFit. I've heard of you. I've heard of DotFit. All the things that 24 innovated in so much in our industry, right? Everything from sales to equipment and even coaching. What does DotFit do today for our audience that might not be aware of you and DotFit? Just give us a quick overview.
DotFit is, you know, our expertise is nutrition and supplementation. And I think the big thing, you know, the supplement industry, for a lot of great reasons, it's really good at marketing, not necessarily good products. It's loosely regulated by the FDA. So one, we make a product that works. We go really three things. We're third-party tested. Most of our product line is NSF certified for sports, so that pro and collegiate athletes can take the product. But where we go the extra mile is, one is we actually have a white paper on every product. So every single ingredient, contraindications, adverse effects, everything's bibliographied and referenced. But I think even more importantly is that we have effective dosages. So a lot of times products will have third party and it'll be clean, but they don't have enough of the ingredient that has any advantageous effect in any clinical trials on human beings. So under-formulized might be clean. Most are, very low formulized might be enough for an ant, basically. But basically, we're combining the nutrition, and we're just really providing what people are doing outside of the gym. So we're the GPS. If they're from here, they want to go from A to B, we're going to get you there. If you get off track, we're going to get you back on track. You just determine how fast you want to get there. You want to take the Autobahn, we'll help you there. If you want to walk, we'll help you get there. But you'll know what you need to do on a daily basis to get from where you are closer to your goal.
There's been so much innovation. So I have a couple of thoughts there. Number one, you've probably seen lately that it seems like supplement companies are popping up everywhere. Celebrities, I mean, the people, the two athletes we just spoke about before we hit record, that's what they were calling me about, is that they are launching a clean, a clear protein drink.
Yep.
They're launching creatine chewables, which I seem like everyone else is doing. I asked about dosage, just like you, like what is the dosage for efficacy there? Then you looked at nutrition coaching. I just feel like it's a dime a dozen. And then you've got influencers and podcasters, and there's just a lot of noise. It's so fragmented. I feel like going back to your 24 days where it's okay, got a couple of magazines. I'd probably read Flex, Muscle and Fitness, and you knew the metrics, EAS. We kind of knew the fundamentals. Then we had what you were doing. But today, it's so fragmented. So how do you kind of distill away from the noise? Right? And you're cracking.
It's tough.
It's tough, right? And then how do you get to the gym, to the member who is just kind of, getting blasted all over?
Yeah, they are getting blasted all the time. And one thing that Neil did, and it doesn't have anything to do with DotFit, but he started a podcast, much like you guys did, called Sup Beast. And he's not talking about DotFit, but he's basically blasting all the influencers that are basically teaching people about nutrition who know nothing about nutrition, what they're supposed to be doing. And so he just really, he really lays into them both on the nutrition side and the supplement side. And, I find it kind of funny, right? Like supplements, I would say if you took a higher being and put him in the grocery aisle of a grocery store and told them to pick out the cereal that would be best to get them to wherever they're trying to go, even this intelligent being would have no clue.
That's right.
Us, we know, okay, with nuts, without nuts, with fruit, without fruit, we can narrow it down. But I go into a supplement store, I see somebody looking at a product, and I'm kind of like, what are you looking at?
Yeah.
Because they have no idea. And, but people hear buzzwords. And so it's good marketing. They put the buzzword, but they don't know how much of the product they actually need. What are the clinical trials on that product? And so to cut down the noise, it is a challenge, especially today. But one of the things that I got asked here at this conference is, we don't do well with nutrition. Almost every buyer, we don't do well with nutrition.
It's funny you should say that, because I've interviewed Neil a couple of times now in the past, and from what I understand, the reason for such the large valuation of when 24 Hours sold was the acquisition of Apex and how that was integral to the whole business model. That was a long time ago, and if you think about how you've mentioned, technology's evolved, understanding of the human body, supplementation's evolved, and yet, you're saying this today, which I would also agree with, that we don't understand how to do it, or we're not doing it right. What do you think what do you think as an industry we need to think about doing to be able to solve for something that you kind of solved a long time ago, like decades ago, really?
That's what we're trying to figure out at the moment. I mean, it is with GLPs coming into the marketplace, right? It's not going anywhere. So we've embraced GLPs, and I may not be answering the question exactly, but it's definitely a big factor. Is people are a lot of people are using it as a crutch. Other people are using it as a tool. We're trying to, if you're going to be using a GLP, how can we educate you so that you're going to not lose bone density, not lose muscle mass, but how do you keep the bone density, increase muscle while you're using this tool to kind of jumpstart and get you going, and all the other benefits that people are gaining from it. It's moving fast, you know. So all we're trying to do is be a little more nimble and really provide a service that people can provide to their member, and we're just trying to figure it out as we go along.
Do you think there's something to do with maybe like how the regulation works in terms of what trainers can do and what they can't do, and how they work with someone that's making recommendations about supplement nutrition? Do you think that's probably it? Because again, it seems quite obvious. You know, if I was going to sit down with someone, the limited knowledge I know, I would give them an exercise program, and I would tell them some basics, what to eat and not to eat, and I'd tell them some, you know, real basic stuff about supplementation, and that's, you know, that would be a good thing to advise them. And yet it does seem as though there's still that kind of disconnect of you know, rounding out those, you know, core essentials about what you should do to get in shape or to stay healthy.
Yeah, with our program, we allow coaches, because a lot of time they're told it's out of scope, right? Talking about nutrition's out of scope. So with our platform, it allows coaches to, because of our RDs creating the menus, it keeps it in the confines where coaches can actually provide nutrition guidance and stay within the legalities of the law by state. So we're recognized in all 50 states. So that helps having that platform. But it is, you know, they're told when they get certifications, you don't do this because it's out of your scope of practice. And so we're just trying to increase the knowledge base. And then that goes back to the original thing. Do we have the trainers do everything? Or like you look at pro athletes today, how many pro athletes have one coach? They have a coach for one thing, right? One for the mental and the emotional part of the game, right? The IPS and all of these other things. Your trainer that's working you out physically isn't the one that's going to be working with you on how to prepare for, you know, life or for an event, or, you know, so having more of a specialized approach, that's the big thing that I'm exploring right now.
I think we've got to get back to the fundamentals. When people ask me about nutrition, exercise supplementation, it's about movement. It's about like protein, removing sugars, right? Having healthy fats. But every week, actually, Matthew, you send me a lot of this stuff. You're very good on like the leading edge supplements, but there's NAD. Mm-hmm. There's you know, magnesium is, you know, has been a ZMA. I mean, it was been 2 decades ago. EAS had a great ZMA product. Mm-hmm. Now that's coming back again. Creatine is now coming back again. How do you review? Like, do you have a review process to say, okay, maybe there's something new here, we should maybe take a look at that? Like, greens is all the rage. Like, there's so many greens product out right now. I just got a new one from Canada that got shipped to my house last week.
Yeah.
When you're in the supplement industry, of course, there could be something that you're like, hey, this could be really, really good. How do you have a process for?
Yeah. So one is everything has to be evidence-based. For us to make it, it has to be evidence-based. We have opinions. You know, there's a lot of opinions around peptides, and I think you mentioned NAD. So NAD plus, and you know, and peptides. There's a lot of validity to the peptides, but when we make a product, one, it has to be evidence-based. But to your point on greens, there's a lot of greens products that don't have any greens, you know? I mean, so we make a greens product that has 2 full servings of greens, and it has all of the other things. But a lot of the popular ones, if you look at it, don't have even a full serving of greens in it. So what do you get? Does it hurt you? Is it bad for you? No, you're probably likely overpaying for a multivitamin at the end of the day. So you're paying 3 times as much that you would for just a regular multivitamin that worked.
Well, I think there needs to be a lot of awareness, a lot of education. Hector Troncoso, welcome to Lifts. You and I have been friends. We've known each other for a couple of years now. I've been to Mexico. We spent some time together, visited your new brand, which I want to talk about, but you are the founder of the only publicly listed company called Sports World in Mexico. So congratulations on that. And you've since left Sports World to now kind of, I think, see your vision for what you wanted to do, which I really aligned with, which is to get the population that is not participating in fitness today and not participating in the things that we all enjoy, but to get Mexico moving and to get Mexico in gyms and to get fitness to be preventative. And we are so aligned in that vision. And I think it's a grand idea, and you're executing it with the new brand, Fitzy. So congratulations on all the success.
Thank you very much. Mo. Yeah, it's been a great pleasure to meet you, to learn from you. Yeah. And of course, from you, Matthew, thank you very much for the invitation. Yeah, Fitzy, it's all about changing lives, but new lives. We are very focused on the first-time user. In Mexico, is 95%. I always do the example that Mexico is like when Ronald Reagan used to be president here. Yeah. Well, a long time ago, only 5% of people go to gyms. So what we are designing is bringing the people that didn't have before the opportunity to go to a very nice gym where they don't do lines to do exercise, lines to take a shower or to go to the restroom. We design everything where they can have great facilities for the best price. So the product, it is great, and it is changing lives because we are now committed to the, I can tell you like it's like for middle class, but the quality of the gyms is like going on a Boeing 747 new one for traveling. So everybody travels in the same airplane. So that's what we are doing with Mexico. As you said before, we are moving Mexico.
Give us a little bit about an overview of the market in Mexico in relation to the US. You ran gyms in the US. We originally met through Workout Bar. And so I know you've got a lot of experience in the market here, but how would you explain the differences and also some of the behaviors that we were talking about last night of the people that come into your gyms that may not be quite as common in other markets around the world?
Well, every time that goes by since I was telling you a long time ago, right now Mexico is reacting faster following United States because United States 23-25% of people goes to gyms. So they are more active since the whole history. But on the trendings, Mexico is doing it very well. But for example, boutique gyms are very difficult for Mexico because it's not cheap to go to a class of $25 to $40 per class. So in Mexico, the expansion for boutique gyms is not that easy. When I say boutique gyms, it's studios. And talking about the opportunity, in Mexico, I always not joke, but telling the competition that we are not competition, we are allies because only 5% of people goes. And here in the United States, we can see it in this kind of trade shows, they're real competition, but they are allies too. So the people are more concerned in the United States of going to the gym. But right now with all the Instagram, TikTok, Face, all the, you are an expert on this, everybody's talking about doing muscle. Everybody's talking about doing exercise to have longevity and to be healthier. So right now, Mexico is following this kind of countries like United States.
You also mentioned a thing last night, and I'm not sure whether it's just where your clubs are at the moment, but you said, in terms of how people use the gym and the need that you're having to build much bigger changing rooms and showers because it's almost like a slightly different destination to probably what you would typically expect some of the gyms in America. Do you just sort of talk through what you've had to do to address that as well?
Yeah, it's very funny because in the launch, we were talking that here in some areas of the United States, they are doing even less showers. After COVID, people prefer to take a shower at their house. In Mexico, it's the opposite because the traffic, distance, and the way that we work in Mexico, we have to drive sometimes 1 hour, 1 hour and a half, or people take, the Uber or the train, whatever, and they prefer to go 2 hours before, they kill the traffic, they arrive, they do exercise, they take a shower. So talking about architecture is completely different than the gyms in the United States. We have to invest more in the wet areas, showers, restrooms, because they spend more time in the gyms. But after COVID, they can decide at what time they do exercise. What does that mean? That we can put more people per day because they could train at 11 a.m., 12 p.m., and they didn't that before COVID.
Look, Mexico City, we spent some time there, is an incredible city. I don't know, Matt, if you've been to Mexico City. It is unbelievable. The architecture, the culture, the food. It's the center of university, of television. It's the capital. So you got It's like combining Washington, D.C., New York, and L.A. and Boston, literally all in one. Is the best way I would describe it. And the other interesting thing, when I toured, when you only had one gym, now you have 20 and you're scaling, I noticed that it is, you have, it's not like just a wealthy coming in, but you've really attracted a population in Mexico that otherwise would not have worked out in a gym, but they're also spending a bigger chunk of their income, a bigger percentage of the income on health and fitness. Speak a bit about the shift in culture in Mexico, where people are saying, I never spent money on health and fitness before, but what is driving them to now say, I want to spend? Because there's, your gyms are like an HGLP gym here. It's $20, which is how much an HGLP gym is. You go all the way up to $40, $50, $60. That's mid-market pricing here for an income that is, a fraction of what it is in the US. So consumers are spending a bigger percentage of that on the membership. What is causing them to do that? How are you attracting people to your gym?
Great question, Mo. As I told you before, our marketing tools are going for the first-time user. And not only for the first-time user, because we are attracting people from 16 to 35 years. Of course, we have people my age. But these kind of people, they rather to invest in living more, experiencing more life than buying an apartment or buying a car. Yes. They don't even have a car. Mm-hmm. They could do a scooter or Uber, and they would rather to invest in the physical, have more muscle, feel better. Before it was like, I want to look better, but that is the result after they feel better. So they are willing to invest a big part of the salary on changing or extending their life. So that is happening all around the world. But in Mexico, 35% of the population goes to that age. And you're talking about 40 million people. That's a really big amount of people on that age that are like tribes. They are training one to each other, helping one to each other for the first time. So for them, it's a real experience.
What have you done in your gyms that is more tailored towards that first-time user? What do you do? Because a gym could be a very intimidating place. When you're first-time, do you do something that's different when a first-time user comes into the gym? Do you give them a personal tour? How do you kind of structure that?
We do a mixing of old culture, We started in the 80s, but we mix it with right now the new things like technology, app, following on the app. But we do the tour, we show them the gym, and we work a lot on the architecture. You met the clubs. The lighting is not as aggressive, it's less lighting. You don't even see at the end of the gym, you just see maybe 7-8 people around. So the lighting helps you a lot. We have a lot of trainers. Of course, the income on personal training is super important, but more important that they feel safe with trainers. So we have a staff around 25 to 30 people taking care of them. So we're trying to give them, the P1 when they arrive, offer them a free session on personal training. And something that is amazing is we give them visits for their friends for free, because when they arrive with somebody else, they feel safer. So we are doing tribes. I call them tribes because you see sometimes 5, 6, 7, 17-year-old, 18-year-old, like taking photos and let's see how much weight you put on chest, and that is helping us a lot on the retention too.
Okay. I was watching a video last night and you was doing a tour around the club. I was quite surprised, one, how busy the clubs were. And it was almost like a social club where you mentioned the tribes, but there were small groups of people standing there chatting on the turf area. There just seemed to be so many things going on. What have you found as some of the trends from a programming or training modality perspective that you're seeing in Mexico that's really working for you guys?
Some of them are the same as all around the world, that less cardio, more legs, glutes, and free weights. But we add something else. We are doing functional, really, really big functional areas where they do all this kind of exercise. And in some of the gyms, yesterday when I showed you, we have the Mayweather studio, but open, no walls. Open, where they take the classes and they mix it with different with the functional areas. So it invites you to be that kind of vibe. But I think the trending is the same all around the world.
Well, Hector, thank you for coming on the podcast. We would love to follow up with you and see where you are like a year from now.
We will wait for you in Mexico again. And
Yeah,
for
well,
you.
I think we need to go out to Mexico City. I think that's
I would
probably
gladly go back to Mexico City.
Please.
Yeah.
We'll wait for you, and everybody that is listening, we'll wait for you in Mexico.
All right.
Great.
Thank you.
Thanks, Hector.
Thank you, guys. Thank you very much.